This is The Neutral Position, hosted by Nick Palmisano, bringing honesty and reason back into conversation. Here's your host, Nick Palmisano.
I want to take a quick moment to thank one of our sponsors. When the founders of Ugly Chews reached out to sponsor the program and I looked at their website and saw the chews, I have to tell you, I thought Ugly Chews were appropriately named. They're very ugly and your dog chews on them. Nailed it. Then the samples arrived and I realized they are not named correctly. They are far, far uglier than the word ugly lets on. They're hairy. They're not artificially colored. They're gross. But you know who didn't find them gross? My athletic body with a dumb face that won't let him breathe, Boston Terrier Rufus. Rufus can't get enough of them. Instead of sitting around slobbering and struggling to breathe, he sits around slobbering on an ugly chew while he struggles to breathe. He loves the damn things. These uglier than ugly chews are healthy. There are no artificial ingredients. There are no chemicals. It's just disgusting, horrific nature wrapped up in an ugly sun-dried chew. And in addition to being good for your dog's digestion, these things don't fall apart and get soggy like rawhide. I hate to say it because they're so damn ugly, but they're the best thing to happen to dogs since man let wolves get close to the fire and domesticated them. And if you're not happy with them, Ugly Chews gives you your money back. So if you want to make your dog happy and healthy, go to uglychews.com. That's right, uglychews.com. Hey guys, I'm Nick Palmisano, and this is The Neutral Position. Today, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Rod Rodriguez. He is a lover. He is a fighter. Rod, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm just a regular hombre, man. And my name is Michael Rodriguez. Most people call me Rod. I was in the Army for about 21 years. And I have the definitely undeserved honor right now to be the president and CEO of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation, which is the congressionally designated nonprofit that is tasked with building a national GWAT memorial in our nation's capital.
The way that you say your last name is very like Antonio Banderas. It's like I get pulled in. You're like, Rodriguez, you know? And it's like, I'm just leaning in. Tell me more. And that soft, supple way that you speak. It's amazing.
A lot of practice.
Talk a little bit about what you're doing right now. So it is incredibly rare to have a war memorial being built so quickly after the end of a war. And in fact, you were having it built, going through the process of having it built before the war was even over. How do you get there? Talk about how you've arrived at this moment.
The foundation was started in 2015 when a group of veterans and family members came together and realized in order to build a memorial, obviously it's a long and arduous process. The way I describe what it is I do, if you can imagine the most complex building project imaginable that everybody has input on, in the most controlled real estate in the nation, and then add 20 layers of bureaucracy and politics. That's kind of what we do. So,
that sounds terrible.
It's a challenge, but I enjoy it. I thrive in a chaotic environment. There's something I picked up after 21 years in the military, but came together to do this, and the reason for that was because really this war really has no forecast at end in sight. So yes. All right, so we're not in Afghanistan anymore, correct? Right. I think Secretary Austin signed the paperwork that we stopped giving the National Defense Medal, right, in last year. However, the war is still going on. 2 weeks ago, we still had men and women did a hit in a cave complex in Somalia to capture an ISIS. Actually took out an ISIS leader and 10 others. 3 weeks ago, we still had men and women conducting operations in Syria. So is the war really over? No, because today the medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal and the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal are still being given, and that's, a lot of people think the war is over, but I challenge anyone that says that to tell the men and women that are out there serving and fighting and hunting them down. So we're still doing it in a time of conflict. But if you look at the first generation, like our senior leaders, when the war started in 2001, a lot of them in their 60s and 70s, they may never see this memorial. My grandfathers passed away before they saw the World War II memorial. So we're actually doing it right. We're doing it at the right time, because the question I asked, why are you doing it now? I said, well, when should we do it? Yeah. Really when? So that's a little bit more on that. Of course, it's my 24/7, 365, so I have a lot of different aspects and looks at it. But it's extremely important right now to recognize and honor the brave men and women that have served, are serving, and guess what? Will serve in our nation's longest war.
Yep.
Because if we don't honor them, who's gonna fight for us?
Do you have a development background?
Development? You mean like fundraising background?
No,
or
I mean development like building something.
No. Outside of humanitarian projects, I was involved in building schools and roads and bridges, and no, not at all.
Do you have a political background?
Absolutely not. I'm proud that I'm not really a politics kind of guy.
So how do you end up in this role?
So I met the founders in 2016. I'm not one of the founders. And this was before the enabling legislation was passed. So I was speaking at an event, and they're like, "Hey, Rod, we need help." I'm like, "Well, who are you? What are you guys doing?" And I'm like, "Wow, it's brilliant. I absolutely, what can I do?" So I joined the board in 2016. And then we had to get passage. We had to get an exemption from a law. The Commemorative Works Act of 1986 states that a war has to be over for a period of 10 years in order for a national war memorial to be built. Now, I don't fault anybody for writing that law at that time. No one could have forecast we would be in a multi-generational conflict with no end in sight. Sure. So we had to seek an exemption, which means you have to pass a bill. I got involved because they asked me to help. I'm like, sure, I'll try. Sure, that's absolutely. So we introduced the bill in 2017 to seek an exemption. Swept through the House and Senate. President Trump signed it in August of that year. At that point, it became like, oh my gosh, this beautiful idea. Now we got to do it. Fortunately, at that time, I was working for President Bush in an official capacity, sitting on an advisory council, and I made a few phone calls to the boss and some of the folks down there in Texas, down in Texas, and I'm like, hey.
Can you say Texas again in that Rodriguez?
Texas. There you go. But
Thank you.
And asked, hey, look, I'm going to need some help. I mean, I asked them, am I the right guy? I mean, what do you think? So then, like, sure, Rod will help. We believe in this mission as well. So I stepped in a leadership role in 2018, and they just kind of built the team that we have today.
I find that interesting, and I obviously know this about you already, but you talk to a lot of people about kind of getting things done and inspiring people to make something of themselves. Talk a little bit about you were in a situation where you literally have no experience, like no experience whatsoever. And you've been successful thus far in getting this project that most people would think, this is a bridge too far. It's the kind of thing people talk about, bitch about, oh, somebody should do this. But you did it. Talk about how a person gets into that mindset. Because everybody I know that's done anything cool, they had no fucking idea what they were doing walking into it. They had to figure it out. So how do you approach these things?
So, yes, I have no idea how to do this, and when you really think about like building a national, I mean, who wakes up one day and be like, hey, this is a goal I have in life. I want to do this someday. Nobody.
Kelsey does.
I can't.
Kelsey does.
That wouldn't surprise me, She looks like she could do it. With the glasses, yeah.
So we want everyone to know that those glasses do not help with anything. They're just fashion glasses for show.
The secrets?
They are fashion glasses for show.
I want everybody out there to understand this. These make you look sophisticated. They make you look like you are somebody of
Can I try them on?
importance.
Can I try them on? I want to see if it
You have to
works
give
for
them
me.
back.
I want to see. I'm going to give you your glasses back. We're going to go around. We'll see who. All right. Are you ready?
No.
See?
I'm sorry, bro. No.
Do I look?
I don't-
No.
I think it's the color of them. You need like a.
You need a black.
All right. Hold on.
Black.
Well, hold on. Hold on. Let's see.
You know he's gonna be.
Let's see.
No,
Let's
no,
see.
I
He's
don't know
gonna
if-
pull.
I don't know if this is my
damn.
color.
It looks amazing.
No,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
that looks
It
amazing.
works with
That
your-
looks
You
amazing.
didn't even have to try him on for me
This
to
is
know that he
this
was
is
rock.
bullshit. This is bullshit. No more distinguished gentlemen on this show.
Just remember, for $49.95, 4 consecutive payments, 1-800-Diesel-JACK Media, you can own a pair of these glasses.
Get your very
Ordered
own.
by Kelsey
Yeah.
on the
Get
Neutral
your
Position
very own
podcast.
today from me. Don't
So
go to Amazon.
so we're building you up right now, but I do want to talk about maybe the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you, and of course I'm talking about the incident at Disney World, where a young lady walked up to you
Oh my gosh, this one. I don't think that was a traumatic story.
I know. I was building it up. See, this is what we call entertainment. See, because you're a war veteran, everyone assumed it was going to be something about war, and we're going to talk about Disney World. This is entertainment, Rod. This is what we're trying to do here.
All right.
So here, let's pretend that we didn't just do that.
Okay. So
talk about the most traumatic story that you've ever had, and of course, I'm talking about Disney World.
So earlier in the year, I was, at Disney World at SVA's NatCon, and
was it dark?
It was
and stormy day.
It was actually beautiful outside, and actually, I think I was wearing this.
Jared Lyon looked amazing,
as always. I was.
His hair was perfect.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I happened to be in the store, picking up a beverage like some water to drink. Disney World has characters, right? They have their cast members just around. And, people will look at me sometimes, I get my eyes a different color, or whatever, right? It's just people stare at me for different reasons, and I'm okay with that. This family was staring at me, and I'm just like, okay, cool. No big deal. And the mother walks over to me, and she had her children right behind her, and she's like, "Sir, we're sorry to interrupt you. We just can't figure it out." I'm like, what, ma'am? She goes, "We're trying to figure out which Disney villain you are. We just can't figure it out." And I'm like, "Ma'am, I am so sorry to disappoint you. I'm a guest at this hotel. I appreciate you thinking I'm gonna look like a Disney villain. Maybe those are cool villains. I don't know, but I'm sorry to disappoint."
Amazing.
Yeah, so that happened.
It's so amazing. And I know your delivery was just like straight faced.
Yeah.
Did she die?
I smiled. Oh yeah, her kids were giggling their butts off, man. They thought it was hilarious. They thought it was the funniest thing.
I would have said like a young Jafar.
Maybe Captain Hook, but I know he.
Captain Hook.
Well, I just get that look. I get that vibe from him, like
pirate,
Peter
huh?
Pan.
Okay.
Yeah, pirate. I could. But to me, that's the equivalent of going up to a woman and asking, "Are you pregnant? How far along are you?" And she's not even pregnant. I would be so embarrassed. I'd have to leave the park. I'd have to
No,
if I came up to you and asked you that.
Honestly, looking at it, because people do stare sometimes. Actually, I appreciate it. I think it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all
it's
right,
awesome.
cool. It's like,
awesome.
all right, cool.
Yeah,
like
you do
Disney
have like the coolest scar possible. Like there isn't a cooler scar than the scar that you have. You actually spoke. My son is a lieutenant, and you spoke. He was doing Gold Bar recruiting at UNC for a little while, and he's at Benning now. But you spoke at UNC,
Yeah.
And he came home and he was like, this guy was amazing, and he had this cool scar, and like he's just talking like you were like a big deal to all the guys there. And I'm like, yeah, I know Rod. Like we've spoken at a few events, and he's like, no, Dad, he's like really good at speaking. And I was like, I hate you. So you did a great job. You inspired the next generation of UNC lieutenants to be better. And you inspired one woman to ask you, which Disney villain. So like that's 50-50. That's solid. That's
It is. No, that's legit. I don't know if I'm inspiring anybody. I like to think I'm giving people the opportunity to engage or to.
No, man,
to
you
step
inspire
forward.
people because I've had to follow you. I think 3 times. I think like 3 times I had to come like right after
Legion.
you.
Well, he destroyed you at the leadership thing.
Oh,
in,
he just
in Illinois.
Yeah,
he shot me.
He crushed it. Like at the end, people are like crying and stuff, and I have to get up there. I was like, come on, man, put somebody boring in front. Like, let's get a politician up there. Can we have a? But no, it's 3 times this guy in front of me, and it's like, he finishes with like, we didn't land on Sherwood Forest. Sherwood Forest landed on us. People are cheering, and you probably, if you don't get that reference, you're not old like I am. But it's
us.
I did not.
What's
I
that?
got the Plymouth. Yeah, if Plymouth is something,
It's-
I won't even go there.
It's Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah, Men in Tights. Old movie.
Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah, he redid the Malcolm X speech, but it was about Robin Hood because it was a Robin Hood movie, but it was a
comedy.
It was a comedy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We should just cue the movie now.
Lend me your ears. That's disgusting.
Anyway, one of the things that I find really interesting about you is you maneuver through very different groups. effectively, like more effectively than just about anybody I've ever seen. And you've been close to people in power for a long time and maneuvered through that, and you're well trusted. Talk about how you do that. And I don't mean like from some kind of like, because I don't think you're anything but genuine. I don't think you sit back and build a map of how you're going to influence people. But you do influence people. Like, you have the ear of a lot of people. How do you do that? What is your approach?
I think it's pretty simple for me. No relationships I have are transactional. I don't have any transactional relationships. I really don't. You know, I have always valued personal relationships over professional all the time. And you're right. I do know quite a few, I guess, powerful, whatever someone would consider powerful, whether that be influential or an individual of political influence, or an individual of you know, with a lot of dinero, you know, whatever. But I don't look at them any different. I don't treat.
What was that last word? A lot of what?
Dinero.
Gracias.
A lot of cash.
Gracias.
Yeah. But I don't treat them any differently. I treat everybody the same. And you know, I'm not saying I'm like, holy crap, that's so and so. I respect everyone's position in life, but I also respect people that nobody knows, and I want to talk to them and find out about them. Because if you talk to everyday American, everyday individuals, probably got an amazing story themselves. So I treat everyone the same. But really, to circle back to what I started with, is just I don't have any transactional relationships. And when someone enters into a transactional relationship with me, or tries to, then I know who they are, and I know where to place them in my life.
I feel I literally live my life exactly the same way. And I have friends that give me a little bit of crap for it, because they're like, you know, you should go talk to this guy. He could really help you. Like, hey, I've talked to this guy, and like, nothing against him or her, but like, we're not on the same wavelength. Like, we don't, I cannot pretend to like somebody for any reason. I just can't do it. And if you don't like somebody, if you don't agree with how they live their life, I don't mean about issues. I mean, fundamentally, the way this person is not the way that I am. It's a waste of both of our times.
Right.
And it does become transactional. It's like, you know, you need this, I need this. I go into every relationship where if I'm your friend and you need something, I help you. I expect nothing in return. Ever. Period. If you help me sometime in the future, that's awesome. And I appreciate that as your friend, but you don't owe it to me because I helped you at some point. And as soon as that changes, it really is weird. It's like, okay, so you're keeping score. I'm not keeping score. I just think that it's a different relationship. So I'm really happy to hear you say that. So you think, you know, you essentially just have genuine relationships, and because of that, those people have helped you along the way.
Yeah. I've never, and I don't ask for anything, you know. I just try to give people opportunities to be involved in something, you know. If I believe in something wholeheartedly, I'm going to share it with those. But I mean, it's just, I don't look at anyone, everyone has the same value in my life. Right? Doesn't matter what their background is. I value everyone's input. I value what they have to offer. And if they're involved in something, then that's great. And the other thing too, the hard reality of that is, like, not everything I'm involved in, I can bring everybody I know in, right? And that's the hard truth, right? Like, you've been incredibly successful as a veteranpreneur, entrepreneur. I mean, I think you set the standard for it. But, you know, your teams grow over time. Nothing against people you work with or you don't work with anymore. Yeah. But things grow and change over time, you know. And a lot of that, I think, for me, comes from like the Army background, right? Like, it's, hey, mission first, man. We got to do this. No offense, no harm, no foul, but it's just, you're not the right person for this mission. And I use this analogy quite frequently, because a lot of people are like, hey, Rod, I want to help. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, well, you know, I don't know if I have a role for that right now. I don't know if I have a spot for that right now. And the analogy I like to use, like, look, I was a sniper for a number of years. If I was given a sniper mission as an SO, whether 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 day SO mission to go conduct, you know, some reconnaissance, whatever it is, whatever that job with that sniper team was, I'm not going to grab my breacher, right? Yeah. It doesn't know anything about it. Yeah. You're phenomenal at what you do. Maybe we'll need you at some point, but I need a sniper. Yep. So that's who I would take on the mission with me. And it's just it's challenging sometimes. And if someone takes offense to that, then do they really care about the mission anyway, or do they just want to be there?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's been a common issue that we've had. For example, with Save Our Allies, the nonprofit that I'm involved in, is, for example, in Ukraine, sending people to help out there. Lots of people wanted to help, and it's like, hey, I was an infantryman. Hey, I was this, I was that, and the people that we actually needed were very specialized. Typically like relationship building. So that meant special forces, maybe with some intelligence background, like a very specific, tiny group of people. Right. And people were offended. Yeah. And it's like, hey, bro, don't be like, I'm not qualified. That's why I'm not the one that's going there. Like we're looking for people that have a very particular set of skills. Mm-hmm. And because you are great at one thing doesn't necessarily mean that this is the mission for you. Now, when the mission changes, like you're the right person. But yeah, it's hard to navigate that, especially when you like people. You're like, I wish I had a role for you. Yeah. I find that a lot. It's like, man, this guy's incredibly talented. I wish there was a spot for him, but I don't have it right now. Right. But going back to kind of the relationship building and how you navigate things. So I think like young people that are watching this show, they are constantly told that to be successful, you have to network. And I think watching, when I was at grad school, watching what people thought was networking, I found almost offensive. Now, I don't really get offended, so I don't mean it like that. But if somebody walked up to me the way these young people walked up to the places where they were trying to get employed, it's so fake. It's so, like, the small talk is so canned. It's all bullshit. Mm-hmm. You're a very effective networker. What advice would you give to people that are trying to network, that want to do it the way that you do it?
Yeah, but like to talk about like the networking things I've been to and stuff. Yeah, it's like speed dating, right? Like from back in the day, I remember like you sit at a table 5 minutes. And it's very again that goes back to what I was talking about. It's transactional. Like you got to sell yourself, and I understand the need for that 30-second, 90-second, 60-second elevator speech, right? You have to master that and get that down. But I think you just got to be genuine and understand that just because you're talking with someone doesn't mean that they owe you anything, right? And when you talk to someone, anybody, within the first 10, 15, 20 seconds of a conversation with someone, you can kind of get a vibe off them, right? So if you just go into a situation where you meet people, treat everybody the same and just say, hey, this is who I am. Hey, this is what I'm interested in. What are you guys up to? And just be genuine. Then that person is probably going to remember that, as opposed to, hey, let me put this in your pocket. Hey, let me sell you this. Look, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I have. And just be genuine and understand that nobody owes you anything. First of all, right? And you should take advantage of the opportunity just to be there. Just be genuine. I don't think that's the easiest answer for people to hear, but that's if I'm a networker, I never really thought of myself as that, but it also doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. Right? People don't understand that. Yeah, like no one knows who you are until you have achieved something. They're like, wow, you did it overnight. Oh yeah, sure. Nothing against anything else. So your reputation is extremely important. You can reach back. Anybody can reach back to everything I've done since I joined the Army, or even reach out and talk to my childhood friends, whatever. I'm the same person. So if I've achieved anything by becoming a networker, I'm just genuine. I just try to realize that nobody owes me nothing. And I get that from my abuelita, my grandma, both of them. They'd be like, nobody owes you anything. Mijo, you just do the best you can. Be a good person. Yep. Try to help other people if you can. And
there's another thing that you do, Ron. It doesn't matter who the person is. You treat them like they're just as worthy as anyone else.
For those of you hearing this mellifluous voice off in the distance, that's Hollywood Herd. That is 100% true.
Well, hermano, Hollywood, my hermano over here. If I do that, it's because I know what it's like to be treated less than. I think everybody's been in a position like that in their life, and nothing feels worse than when someone treats you less than, or they're better than you, and just lay it out there. And my operational environment is currently right now was inside the Beltway here in DC, you know, and I get that all the time. And that's fine. I'm cool with it. But I will never treat anyone like that because I respect them. I respect individuals for who they are, what they have to offer. Because I don't know them, but I would love to get the opportunity to.
And there's no reason to treat people.
Absolutely
like that.
not. No.
There's no reason.
No.
Like, you know, I mean, you can tell people like, hey, I'm not interested in this thing. You can tell people, you know, but there is really no reason. That is purely for your own ego.
Yeah.
And just as a general rule, when I see people do that, like, I want nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Like, it's the equivalent of going on a date and they treat the waiter like crap.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm out. You know, you just stand up right there.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this.
I used to get upset when people not realize what we have, what we're bringing to the table. I used to like the whole being underestimated thing. I'm like, what the hell? But then I realized some years ago, I'm like, man, that's a strength. I would love for someone. I mean, we both train in the combat sports, man. I love it when someone thinks they're going to beat the hell out of me. Yeah, come on. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Just come on, bring it. You know. So it's actually to an advantage. So people that are trying to make it in the world with younger people or veterans transitioning, it's okay to be underestimated. Use that. Look at that as an advantage, and then that gives you the opportunity. If they think you're down here,
yes.
Once you show them that you're up here, they're gonna be like, "Holy crap!
Yeah,
I made a mistake. This person can do this." And you're gonna far surpass any expectations.
That is my favorite, especially now that I'm older. Is when, you know, like no-gi day, so young guy walks in yoked, you know, looks at the old guy and is like, "Yeah, let's go," and it just doesn't go their way, and they're like, you know.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the time that you slammed me? Is that what you're referring to? Young guy, kind of in shape, comes in and gets his
well, so off camera right now, we have Dan Mercer. Dan Mercer was a elite basketball player in college and played in China. Where else did you play? Australia and China. So he's good at the basketball.
The lowest level of
don't say that. Don't say that,
I
Dan.
got a paycheck to play basketball.
There's no way to validate that. Don't ever say that. Just let it go.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you were a pro basketball player. True. I was not. This might surprise some of you. I was not a pro basketball player. So we had like a very martial day. So our holiday party this year was.
Not like anybody else.
we shot from like 9 a.m. to noon, and then we had lunch, and then we did jiu-jitsu for like 4 hours, and then we played pool and drank beer. That was our holiday party. And Mercer. So first of all, she's crazy. She grapples like if you gave. What would you call yourself?
No, Dan, I thought gave me that.
Yeah, well, she was like, you know the spider monkeys when they had the claws and they just like going around and because all of a sudden she'd be on the floor and then all of a sudden she'd be on someone's shoulder.
Yeah, like she was nuts. So which was good. I say that in a positive way. But anyway, so Mercer, we're rolling and Mercer's like, hey, can we just like go for it on this one? Something like that. You said something like that. Like, hey, can we just go for it? Because he's like, you know, he's an athlete, and he's like, I want to. So he's like, all right, let's. Like,
and young.
I'm like, I said, I will meet your energy.
That's a good one.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
And a few seconds later, I was like, I am really sorry. I threw you too hard. And he was like, no, I'm fine.
No, I like it.
It takes a lot of time, effort, and resources to make the neutral position, and we couldn't do it without our sponsors. In 2016, a vet named Jason Murph slid into my DMs to talk about the seasoning he had created for grilling meats. I gave him some advice on marketing, and he sent me some samples of his new brand with a donkey on each bottle emblazoned with the words, "Grill your ass off." Fast forward 7 years. I'm at a charity event for veterans, and who's the headline sponsor? None other than Grill Your Ass Off. He still has the amazing seasoning that started it all, but now he's got condiments, beef jerky, incredible sauces, and even gear. Grill Your Ass Off won the American Freedom Fund Veteran Small Business of the Year Award and is committed to giving back to veteran causes and mentoring veteran entrepreneurs. The one downside? After using these incredible seasonings, you will be assless. That was a dad joke. You see, the product is called Grill Your Ass Off. So you know, you grill and then boom, ass gone. No, you don't like that? Okay. Well, anyway, check them out at grillyourassoff.com. That's grillyourassoff.com. Great taste, great company, great cause, no ass. Use NP15 at checkout for 15% off at grillyourassoff.com. That's November Papa 15.
But you train combat sports with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing. Why do you do it?
Ah, man. So part of my philosophy as a father, I believe that all children, all my boys, all three of the monsters, I encourage them to play a sport. I'm like, I want you to do something. I really, really want you to do something athletic. But I want you to do something you want to do. You know, I played soccer as a kid, and then I boxed, right? Mm-hmm. Is what I did. But I didn't want to force that onto them. But I said, look, you're going to do something because, you know, the human bodies were a whole concept, right? I mean, you need to be physically fit.
Yeah.
It helps provide clarity of thought. Then you can, any intellectual engagements you're going to be involved in are going to be that much better. So I've pushed that. I mean, if there's one thing I pushed, it's that we're going to do something. And then, you know, my oldest son, if I have a clone, I sometimes I feel sorry for him. It's my oldest son, Antonio, Monster One. I knew he was, because he knew I trained, and so he started training at the Rock Gym in Fayetteville and got into
That's a great gym.
Oh, phenomenal! I
Yep.
mean, I could talk
Yep.
forever about how amazing that place is. So he started there. He got into that. My other two sons got into gymnastics, and they were like gymnasts for
is awesome.
6 years, 7 years.
Nothing teaches you how to move your body.
Oh,
better,
the body awareness,
you know?
the strength to weight ratio.
We got a gymnast at the end of the table here.
Oh, nice. Yes. So my middle son, Diego Monster 2, he got up to be a level 10 and then was a gymnastics coach. Then he did that for a job. And then my youngest son, Jacob, he wanted to do, he did that for 6 years. It was a state champ in North Carolina. And then
So your kids aren't athletic at all?
No, not at all. But then he played football, and then one day and I'm going to answer. I have to explain all that why I trained them. And then one day Jacob, actually just recently, like 6 months ago, he said, "Dad, I want to learn to fight." I said, "Okay, Mijo, why?" Right? I would love everyone's why. Like, why do you want to do that? And if my youngest son is my Christ-like child. He's the one that makes me feel like I need to go to church more. And that's my, like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person type of child. He reminds me of that. So I said, well, why, Mijo? Why do you want to? He goes, well, Dad, because my oldest son, who's in the 82nd now, he still trains.
Yeah.
I mean, as a matter of fact, Antonio's the last person to knock me out. So yeah, it was a great day. So he said, Dad, well, I've seen you and Antonio train, you know, and I want to be able to protect myself. And if I ever get good enough, I want to be able to help somebody else out. So he was 15 when he told me that.
Yeah.
Now that's why. To answer that question, that is why. I think everyone should be able to take care of themselves and then continue to build on that. I think we have a personal responsibility, not just as Americans, but as human beings, to be able to take care of yourself. That means I'm not a burden on anyone else. And then hopefully I get to a position where I can help somebody else. And that's why. That's why I believe combat sports are extremely important in the youth of our nation, or just really anyone.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a youth to start, right? There's no shortage of stories of people that don't start that till later on in life.
Yep.
But if you don't accept the personal responsibility to take care of yourself, what does that say that about about you as an individual? You know, I mean, and nothing against people with certain disabilities or anything like that.
Oh, of course.
No, definitely
Yeah,
not.
of course.
You know, there are certain things that everybody can do. You know, I have certain things that are different for me. I don't like the word disabilities, but it's not going to slow me down.
Sure.
But I just think that's why I do it.
Yeah. And not for nothing, but, you know, people that have disabilities train too.
Absolutely.
You know, like Garrett Carnes is one of the Tim Kennedy's sheepdog response instructors, and, you know, he doesn't have legs, you know, but you might, if you think you're going to have an easy role with him, like, you will not,
Right.
you know. Actually, Garrett without legs is very similar to regular Kelsey, you know, just Garrett, if you're listening, it was a joke. I'm just, no, but, you know, for me, what I see in my kids is that doing combat sports gives them confidence and reduces anxiety. You know, if you actually train, you don't really worry about other people very much. And listen, like, we can both get our butts kicked. The benefit of training is that you know that there are levels way higher than us. But you also know that you're probably not going to get your butt kicked by 95% of the human population, because if they don't train, it's like they're children. Like if I try to hit you and I'm not a boxer, it's like slow motion. You see exactly what I'm going to do. My head goes like this. I pull this arm back. I'm swinging wildly. You're not there anymore. You've already hit me 3 times. You know, similarly, like if somebody grabs you, you know, and tries to drag you to the ground and they've never wrestled, like, you're not getting to the ground unless you want to go there. And I think having that changes the way they carry themselves, changes the way they look at other people. You know, and it's not just my boys. Like, you know, my daughter, who is 15, she was one of the first 16 women to qualify for the state championships in North Carolina in history for wrestling. And, you know, talking to her little brother, he's like, people are afraid of her at school. And they should be.
Yeah.
You know, not because she's a bully or anything, but because she can handle herself. And I think that's meaningful for kids. That's my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we started over the summer, right? So we were training like midday, but then when the school started, I said, hey, Mijo, this is my youngest son, Jacob. I said, Mijo, look, we're going to have to start training super early, which means you're going to start getting up at 4:30 in the morning so you can train before school.
Yep.
Because I want you to focus on school afterwards. He's like, okay, Dad. So we did that, and that's where it was kind of like, all right, we did it during the summer. Let's see where your commitment level is when it's inconvenient, right? No one wants to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I don't care what anybody says. Or
not even Jocko.
I don't care what anybody screams into a microphone.
Like Jocko takes the
nobody
picture of the
likes it.
watch, but he doesn't want to be up.
I don't think anybody does, but I could be wrong. And vampires maybe, but you know, we started doing that, and he committed to it, and that's what our day started, 4:30 in the morning. We get him, and then we warm up and we train him for school, and then so in November of last year, I was driving him to school. I said, "Hey, Miko, how do you think the training's been going for you?" You know, he never says no. This kid is just super stoic child. Yeah. And he's just do this, and he does it. He's like a robot, you know. I mean, and I'm like, no, correct this, and he'll do it, and then he corrects it. The kid is immensely talented. I think he's gonna get. He's almost at the point where I'm gonna have to find someone else to train him because he's gonna far surpass any training abilities I have.
I understand that.
So I said, Miko, how do you feel? How's school going? How's this affecting your school? He goes, you know, Dad, I feel better about going to school. I don't. I'm not. He didn't say scared. He said, I'm not. I feel more comfortable at school. I'm more engaged in school. I don't worry about anybody. So to your point, which you were just talking about, that's exactly what. I mean, he's 16 now, and he feels more confident. He's not really worried about it. There's fights at his school.
Sure.
I mean, there's fights at any school.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody
There's kids.
says.
There's going to be fights.
Kids going to be kids. And he's more confident, and his grades have improved, which is crazy, right? Wow. I mean, he's doing better. He's that I'm engaged. I'm awake. I feel better. I feel more confident. That's what he said. I feel more confident.
Do your kids compete?
No. I don't want to push it on him again. I just want to train that, and I think he might be wanting to. So we'll figure that out. He may want to just start boxing in some smokers.
Does your oldest compete in jiu-jitsu?
No, my oldest he did boxing. He competes. He competed at the 82nd cool. The smokers and things like that. But you know, he's not really pursuing any. It's just a lifestyle, and that's what I've hoped to pass on to my children, is a lifestyle of fitness and activity, with some combat sports in there, because you know I'll be 49 soon. I like to think I'm in pretty decent shape for a gentleman my age.
I mean, you're in decent shape for a 21-year-old.
But
honestly, we can't have you on the show again. It hurts my feelings.
People will ask, Rod, how do you? I'm like, look, man, I've lived this.
Yep.
This has been my life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to pass that on to my children. It's not like nothing against anyone who's the success stories lost 100 pounds and they're in a position where, no, I have lived like this my entire life, and you can talk to anybody that's known me, whether I was back a group or anywhere. I've always been like this, and I hoped to pass that on to my children, and hopefully it'll carry on.
Do you think combat sports give kids something that other sports don't? I also did other sports.
Yes.
What do you think that is?
I think it gives them an inoculation to human nature and the capacity of violence that all humans have. You know, it absolutely does. You know, humans are capable of some of the most horrendous acts possible. I'm not saying all humans, but everyone is capable. And I think combat sports kind of, I don't say inoculates them, but kind of introduces them to the fact like what violence is. And that goes to back what I was talking about earlier was, you know, I think you have a responsibility you should have responsibility to take care of yourself in some fashion, at some level. So combat sports is going to introduce them to that. And here's an example. So I was going through a course, it was a CQB course we used to call it Sephardic, but I don't think they have it anymore. But it was an HR CQB's course that
I think they renamed it.
Yeah, they renamed it. So anyway, when I was going through that, part of that, every morning you rolled and you fought, and you know, and since then I've been in. You know, I've gotten. I do jiu-jitsu, I do kickboxing. I had to I'm not just a boxer. I have to I understand boxing is an art, but to fight is different, and that's in the Army. I just okay, I need to change things. So when it's Sephardic, I remember you train and then you spar, right? They make everybody spar after some training. And these are some of the most capable operators out there. These guys, multiple deployments overseas, just doing the work, right? And then you punch them in the face, and they've never been punched in the face. It's an eye opener. It is a completely different experience for them. And these are individuals that
they're badasses.
They're badasses. But you punch them in the face, or knee them in the gut, or whatever it is, kick them in the leg. Oh my gosh, kick someone in the leg, right? Man, they fold, and I think that's a weakness, particularly for those that serve. So I say that combat sports inoculates and gets people ready for that. In the eventuality, pray it doesn't happen. That things get physical in their life.
It's surprising how fast violence happens. That's the thing that always, I think, throws people off. It's like, you don't know when it's going to happen. Like, I've never started a fight in my life, but I've been in a few, and I've literally never seen them coming. And it's just like, crap, here we go. And you have to immediately switch on, like, I'm not in this comfortable social situation anymore. It's now I'm fighting.
Right.
Like, here we go. And if you're not ready for that, if you haven't had to turn that switch on, it's a problem. And I also think you brought up something that was really interesting. There's a significant overconfidence with people that are very good with weapons. That is the answer. And I'm not saying that it's not important. Like, I carry. I think it's important to know how to use a weapon. I think it's important to have one available. But inside a certain range, it's not that valuable. And we were at a course that Tim Kennedy was teaching for police, and this guy was adamant that it was a knife training, what you have to do if somebody pulls a knife, and he was adamant that, like, I think they were 7 feet apart or something, that he was going to draw and get this guy before he got stabbed. And he would not take Tim's word for it. So Tim got the shock knife, stood 7 meters away, and was like, "You say go." And the guy was like, "Go." And Tim stabbed him 31 times. Like, he literally got to him, stabbed him, held his gun hand, and just kept stabbing him with the shock knife. And the dude, like, his whole world melted. It was wild.
Yeah, I've seen videos. We used to show those out at Range 37 when we used to teach the distance videos with a knife. I mean, those videos are like been around for a minute. But I think another thing, being inoculated to violence, because people that, like, I'll talk about my community, right? SF guys, if things get physical, then what they're supposed to be doing, it's the difference between focused violence and blind aggression. This is something that I try to figure out what the difference is. So focused violence is far more effective than blind aggression, right? Nothing against the spider monkey attack, right? That's all good, good and well, but there's no strategy. And what's your effectiveness? You're expending too much energy into something that probably won't return any investment of what you're trying to accomplish. So there's blind aggression and then focused violence. So focused violence is, okay, it doesn't matter what's going on. I've been inoculated to getting punched in the face or kicked in the leg. I still know, I still have my wits about me. Okay, that's not the end of the world.
Yep.
I still can focus on what it is I'm doing. Blind aggression, I'm not saying the guys in my community can't continue what they're doing if they've been physically assaulted in some fashion, but now their efficiency has diminished. Their capabilities have diminished. They're not as good as they could
As
have,
they were.
as they were, right? So that's, you know, and you look at it, I try to train my sons to be focused violence. Like, hey, this is going to happen, but maintain your focus. Doesn't matter things that are going on. But then blind aggression, they get hit. Most fights, 95% of the population, turn into the windmill fight. You know, the screaming, the yelling, and then the more chest pumping. And,
switching gears to something that like I absolutely wasn't going to talk about, and neither of us are experts, so don't feel like you have to answer. But you know, when you watch videos with police officers where things go bad and you've got a bunch of cops like wailing on somebody, I always think like it's an overreaction that comes from fear because they don't know how to move their bodies. Like I watch some of these videos and I'm like, and I'm not one of these guys that thinks, oh, you roll jujitsu, that's the equivalent of being in a life or death fight with somebody that doesn't want to be arrested. Like those are different things. But, you know, if you know how to control somebody's body, you probably, my opinion, you get in fewer of those situations. Like, do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you
Yeah.
If you don't want to touch this one.
No, that's fine. No, I'll talk about it. That's fine. I'm not an expert, right?
Yeah.
It's my dos centavos, man,
Yeah.
my 2 cents, right?
Yeah.
So I 100% agree that
Dos centavos.
2 cents. But you know, when you look at those videos of the you know, our law enforcement officers just going too far at times, you know, I think it's rooted out of fear, and they don't know what they're doing, unfortunately, sometimes. Not to pass judgment on anyone, it's just I think that's a lot of what is experienced. They don't know how to control the situation. They've never been in a situation like that. You know, I think a lot of the issues we face today are lack of training. You know, to place these men and women that are serving their communities.
Yep.
They're not properly they're not given the tools necessary in today's environment. And today's environment is far more aggressive towards law enforcement officers than it was when I was a kid. You know, I was born in '74, man. I remember that. I grew up in the '80s, right? So nobody ever did anything. You know, the police officer said something. Okay, well, I'll do that. Were they always the best? No, but it's just things are different. Today's society, people are
you generally listened. Like
you generally
listened, and like my parents were like, you know, listen, if there's an issue, we'll deal with it later.
Right.
But like, don't. But now, people are like, I don't have to do that. And I'm not saying they're wrong. You know, if a police officer is wrong, like I understand where it comes from. That being said, you know, that's a tough fight to have.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a tough fight to have. And like I remember one time I got pulled over for speeding when I was a young lieutenant by a police officer that just lost his shit on me. Just absolutely lost it. He was like, you know, swearing, like, you know, you don't have respect for human life. Well, and his partner came over about halfway through and kind of pulled him back, and then explained to me that he had just pulled a dead kid out of a car, like that day, like right before this. So that always made me think, you don't know where these officers just were when you're having this incident, whatever the interaction is. Like, you don't know what they just were going through. They might have just been assaulted. They might have been shot at. They might have, like, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what their background is. So how you interact is always, like, I just always think I'm going to be the nicest person I possibly can be, period. And if they're wrong, like, there is a process for
There's
dealing.
a process, right.
But yeah, it's interesting. All right, I don't want to derail you too
that's
much from
fine,
that. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about today before I go into some rapid fire questions?
What would be good to talk about? I mean,
Sending your son to war after you've been to war.
oh man. All right.
Man,
It's-
the Air Force guy just got
Yeah.
heavy. Here, let me ask that in a profound way, and then you can like come back with the same question, but in Spanish in that Antonio. So, and I know a little bit about this myself, but when my son was like, I'm going infantry, after I told him, don't go Army, go Air Force, do a smart guy nerd job, and he's like, I'm gonna go infantry. There was a part of me that was very proud, like, and you know the deal, like doing the hardest job there is, following in the footsteps, etc. And then there's a part of me that's like, I don't know, man, like, I don't want you doing this stuff.
Right.
Your son is currently in the 82nd, following in your footsteps. I have no doubt that at some point there'll be a packet and he'll be trying to go SF, and, you know. How's that feel?
I think a lot of parents, like what you just talked about, Nick, can kind of feel the same way, right? Especially if we've worn the uniform. You know, my father's a Vietnam veteran, my grandparents, World War II hombres. It's just apple trees make apples, right? We have to remind ourselves of that sometimes. So when my son chose to do that, I remember it was a similar conversation when he was a senior in high school that I had with my father. Now, my father's experience was vastly different than mine. Obviously, I didn't grow up in the military, but my oldest son did. You know, I served for 21 years, and his mom did as well. You know, God bless that kid for having two retired senior NCOs as parents. You know, but he was like, Dad, I wanna join, and I always knew he was going to. That, like I said, Antonio's probably my clone, and you know, I was like, hey, Mijo, let's try. Let's try and get you into West Point Prep, or let's just get the officer route, because officers live a completely different lifestyle than the enlisted do. Completely different life and existence. So I'm like, yeah, let's try and do that. He's like, no, Dad, I want to fight. I'm like, all right, Mijo. So, you know, I've been at Bragg since '97. You know, I was a 7th Group guy until, so I went to SWIC and retired out of there. I said, all right, Mijo, what do you want to do? It's all airborne infantry. I'm like, Antonio, you grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You're going to come right back here. You're going to be in the 82nd. He's like, that's what I want to do. I said, okay, Mijo, we'll okay. You know, so him and his mother, you know, we sent him off, and, you know, he came home, and he was 82nd, and right after he got to his unit, you know, they were slated to go to deploy to Afghanistan. You know, as a young E3, he's just getting married. He just found out that, you know, they were going to have a baby, like right before he deployed, like 3 weeks before he was deploying. And I'm like, all right, we're okay. We've lived this lifestyle, right? This is who we are. You know, Mom, you know, I know what it's like to go to war and experience what I experienced. And I know what it's like to be a spouse at home when I was married to Kelly, you know, my ex-wife now. You know, to stay home with the kids. I mean, this is our lifestyle. It's what we do. This is the responsibility we have in support of our nation. So then we're right there, and the deployment ceremony at Bragg, typical, you know, at Green Ramp, and the families are there, whatever. And then I remember he was going to the Helmand Province to perform the QRF mission. And the Helmand Province one was in hospital places on this planet. If you're infantry guys, you're going to the QRF mission, you're going to fight. That's it. Like, that's the nice way of saying it. You're going to fight.
Literally every time you're getting the call,
you're going to fight. So I'm sitting there, and, you know, I deployed to the Helmand Province. His mother had deployed.
For those of you that don't know, QRF is Quick Reaction Force.
Thank you, Nick. So, you know, I had been to the Helmand Province, deployed there twice. His mother had been there. Yeah, Kelly had been there twice as well. So we're watching our son deploy to the same region of Afghanistan that both her and I had served in to fight the same enemy. And, you know,
your kids are
my kid.
Your kids are fighting the kids of the people.
Right.
I mean, like.
And, you know, he was 4 years old. His first memories are of the towers falling. That's his very earliest, as far back as he can remember. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, holy crap, what's going on? Man, you know, so I give him that hug before he goes, that hug of hope is what I call it, you know, praying that it's not my last embrace. Just tell him, hey, be careful. I love you, and you'll come home. That's it. And, you know, he's much taller, smarter, stronger, better version of me.
I get it.
So he turns around, he picks up his ruck, and he walks to, you know, where they're heading off, right, to go to the bird. And all I see, you know, is big warfighter, you know, our nation's finest, right? You know, he grabs his ruck, he grabs his weapon, and walks away. And all I see is a toddler, right?
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you, shit, that like broke me in half. That broke me in half. 'Cause like that, not in, I almost sound like an insensitive spouse or ex-spouse, but that was the most difficult employment of my life. The one I didn't go on.
Any doubt.
You know, not the 10 I did, not the ones I watched Kelly go on, and me staying home with the kids, figuring stuff out, right? That right there, you know, and watching him do that, I'm just like, I'm proud, but I'm scared because I know what he's doing. I wish I didn't know what he was doing. 7th Group had the Siege of Sodef at the time, so he gets in country. I got a call, you know, from one of the guys. Hey, is your son here? I'm like, yeah. Why are you calling me? Yes, he's there. Does he need anything? I don't know. Like, if something happens, dude, I'm trying to be.
Don't
dude,
call me. You're
I don't know,
me
man. I don't
You're
know
messing
what's
me up
right.
now.
Right.
Yep.
So that, you know, watching your child go to fight. So I can't imagine, and this is something I say as often as I can to people, to talk about the war we're in right now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it would have been like for my father to watch me graduate airborne school and go fight the Viet Cong.
Yep.
Any more than I can imagine what it would be like for my grandfather to watch my father finish his training and then go fight the Nazis or serve in the Pacific. But that's the reality today. And if you look at the numbers of served in the wars, you know, just the 20th and 21st century, you know, 11% of the population served during World War II, 7% during Korea, 4% during Vietnam.
4.3.
You know, and the current conflict, you know, if you look at the numbers of those that have set foot in the battlefield, you're just over 5 million.
Yeah.
You know,
less than
in over 21-year war. I mean, it's astounding. So, you know, our nation, we've created a warrior caste, and you know, when you talk about the percent of people that serve, if you look at, you know, less than 1% right now. I look at the number, and
almost everybody that serves now, almost not everybody, but a significant percentage have parents that served.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you know, my dad, you know, he's a Vietnam veteran. He was a Air Force ALO for 1st Group, so he had a very active Vietnam experience, and he kind of said to me, like, one day, he's like, you know, like when Jack was like, I'm joining the infantry, he was like, man, his take is a little less positive at this point, having lived a number of, you know, watch it. And he just said, man, I just think at some point our family's done enough. Yeah. And what he meant by that is, like, I remember he called exactly how Iraq was going to go down the second it went down. Like, he was like, this is what's going to happen. Like, before anybody was talking about it, he said, look, you know, we're gonna roll through this country, and we are gonna end up fighting a guerrilla war. And I was like, I was a young man. I was like, you know, Dad, that's a different era. We've learned a lot. And he was like, okay. And you know, so he as an older man just looks at the young people of the country as an incredible, valuable asset, and worries about, you know, the decision making of politicians that maybe haven't been there. And I think about that a lot. And so you, as a person that has dealt with a lot of politicians, you just talked about, you know, 11%, 7%, 4.3%, less than 1%. You see directionally where we're going. Right. Fewer people during World War II, just about everybody serving had served in the military. Everyone serving in Congress had served in the military.
That's right.
Now, it's a tiny fraction.
It is.
And people love wars that haven't been in wars.
Yeah.
People love to send kids to war because it feels righteous. Yeah. I worry very much about how we decide to go to war.
I think everyone should worry, quite honestly. You know, if you don't have skin in the game, how can you make a decision, right? Like, you know, that's one of the reasons I think this effort that, you know, I'm humbled to be part of, building this memorial, is so important. It's going to be in the nation's front lawn. They're going to see this every single day and provide an opportunity for them to see the decisions, the outcome of their decisions. Hopefully, those that will listen will to see that. But then it also gives us a place to gather, to remind them. Because right now, let's talk about what happened at Abbey Gate a year and a half ago, right? Mm-hmm. You know, we lost 13 service members, you know, 11 Marines, one corpsman, and one Army PSYOP guy. And the Army PSYOP guy actually was a friend of Antonio's. They deployed together in the 2504 during his first combat deployment to Afghanistan. Wow. So that touched home personally as well, you know. So anyway, where I'm going with that, there was a memorial that the Marines held together at the Iwo Jima, which is phenomenal. But that was the memorial at the Iwo Jima. Where do we gather? We don't have a place to gather. We don't. So why not do it here? I'm not saying like you know, rub it in their nose, but we need to do this to remind those in the House and the Senate, like, look, this is the outcome, and it is a very small percentage of families that are bearing the bulk of it. I look at that 1%, and I don't think that shows a lack of patriotism, and I could be wrong. I look at that 1%, and I'm profoundly proud that it only takes 1%. That should be the goal, right?
Yep.
It should be. Less than 1% to find the 99%. But that means that 90%, 99%, the duty that they all share to honor the service and sacrifice of that 1% needs to be increased. It need to be reminded. You know, unfortunately, we're in a time in our society where it's normal to be at war. Yeah. You know, a lot of our peers think the war is over. Yep. They do. Yep. They all do. I see a lot of them. You know, I'm not going to name them. I'm like, oh, the war's not over. It is not over. We are still out there.
Well, and you
doing
know,
the work.
there will be more attacks as a result.
Absolutely.
Of, you know, like it's never ending.
No, it isn't.
We have entered into a never-ending struggle.
Absolutely.
But also, just in the history of mankind, we've never not had war.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to your point, I think that the danger. So, I think we have the best military we've ever had. I mean, I think it's the best military that's ever been on the face of the earth, and I think it's better now by a wide margin than when I was in. You know, I think they keep improving, mm-hmm. contrary to what, you know, right. people like to say. But the danger of having less than 1% of the population serve is I think twofold. One, there is a distance from, like, most people don't know somebody that died in the war, right? That wasn't the case in Vietnam. So that meant, for better or for worse, the nation was engaged in the war. The nation has not been engaged in this war at all over the last, the first year, maybe the second year, during the surge. Outside of that, it's pretty much just been in the background, and people don't think about it. That's the first challenge. The other challenge is, I think that we create a subgroup of people that worship troops too much. Like, when I think about support, I would like if we're going to war, and that war is going to cost, let's just arbitrarily say, $1 trillion. We need to lay aside $300 billion to take care of people that were grievously wounded, to take care of people that need to handle trauma, mental trauma, physical trauma, whatever. Like, that has to be baked into the equation. Like, to me, that's what care is. It's not lionizing people.
Right.
And the reason I say I think it's harmful to be lionized. I think there are certainly people that should be lionized. Our Medal of Honor recipients, for example. But, like, the military did way more for me than I did for it. Like, I don't need thanks. I don't need anything, and I'm not cool. Like, you're pretty cool. No. But even you, like, I've heard you say this, like, you don't really want people going like, oh, you're the man, you're amazing. I want people to take care of people that need to be taken care of and to set them up for success as they're leaving. That's the investment that I believe the government owes veterans. And I want veterans to, as most do, go out and succeed and not feel like society owes them something.
Right.
That's where, like, when I see people get in trouble, when I say trouble, like, maybe they don't have the job they want, depression, suicidal ideation, all that stuff. That typically comes from like the difference between expectation and reality.
Right, yeah.
If everybody's like, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best, you're amazing, you're a hero, and then it's like you get it, like you don't have what you think you have, there's that delta becomes a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it.
No, I think, we need to educate those that haven't served on their responsibilities, right? And that is elected officials, that all that needs to be part of it. I really want to stress that I'm proud that it takes such a small percent. And I agree with you, Hermano. I mean, like, they're far, I'm not one of those old guys that's going to look back and be like, oh man, we were better. Like, heck no, man. These guys are far more capable than I ever was. But, the responsibility is on us, and we need to remind everybody, whether they wear the uniform or whether they don't, we're still part of one team. We're still on the same team. There's a term that's tossed around quite frequently that it drives me nuts when I hear it, because it's not true. The civilian-military divide. There's not a divide. If you want a snapshot of the 99% of our nation, look at the 1% that do. It's the same. The most diverse, inclusive, broad organization that exists, the United States military. Hands down. I mean, I'll argue with anybody about that. It is.
Yep.
So if you want a snapshot of the 99%, it's us. It's those of us that have served.
But I'd push back and say there is a challenge with reintegration.
Well, there is. This is where I'm going with this. Is I think there's a misunderstanding between the two. I really think there's a misunderstanding. The second, those that served, the onus is on those of us that served, as well as it is those that didn't serve, to communicate and bridge that misunderstanding, to talk about it and be like, hey, we're just everyday Americans. I 100% agree with you. The lionization and the fetishization of the special operations, particularly, it's like, man, it's just gone a little bit too far in my opinion. But that's just Humble Hombre's viewpoint. But I really think that the responsibility lies within us, the veteran community as well, to express that and educate our own community and those that have the opportunity to engage the other 99%. To let them know, like, look, we're not scary. We're not any different than you. We're, in spite of looking like a Disney villain, I'm still a
young Jafar.
A young Jafar. I'll take that. The guy was kind of an a-hole, but okay. But I think it's between the two. I think there might be an opportunity to divide. I'll go there. But I just think there's a general misunderstanding. And because we've been at war and it's normal, and there's been such a disconnect from those that served and that hasn't served, we're almost looked at as like, and nothing against those families that believe that, like, what do I have in common with these people? What do I have in common? Think about a family in middle America. If my family was to we're gonna have a carne asada barbecue with them, and then I bring my family, I mean, what they're gonna be like, oh, what do I, what I mean? They won't look at us as a family. They're gonna look at us as a warrior family, and yeah, that's what we are. But I'm still a family just trying to have some carne asada with you and hang out. So I think a lot of that has to do with the communication, but it has to be open communication and vulnerable communication. We have to be able to listen to both sides, because vulnerability is the foundation of human connection. If I'm not vulnerable, if I don't put myself in a vulnerable position to listen to you openly and realize that, like, I may not like everything you hear or say, am I really trying to communicate with you?
Awesome. On that note, Mission Barbecue has been a huge help to you as you've tried to make this memorial a reality. Can you talk about their contribution and maybe how that fits into the greater veteran community?
Absolutely. So, getting people to get involved with the foundation has been a challenge, because it requires a visionary. It requires people with a visionary view, right? So, Bill and Newt, Bill Krause and Stephen Newton, the co-founders of Mission Barbecue, approached me, and they're like, hey, Rod, we want to help, and this is what we want to do. We've been watching what you've been doing, and we want to help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even reach out to them, but they reached out to us, and they did it in such a phenomenal fashion that they're like, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And they did. Through the sale of their Hero Cups, they've raised almost almost $3 million in the past 2 years.
Are you serious?
Right. So that means they sold 1.5 million cups. And now let's talk about that money and what we use it for. Passing the bill is not easy. Yeah. Keeping the lights on and bringing the people in here to do this is is not is not something that's affordable, right?
Yeah.
This is a very if you to talk about some price tags of some of these memorials, so the World War II memorial was almost $200 million. Martin Luther King was $120 million. Those were built, almost 20 years ago. So you do the math, right?
I had no idea.
Right. So in our infancy, when they stepped in, it was hand of the Lord, in my opinion, and I say it as often as I can. We would not have passed that bill if it was not for Mission Barbecue. We would not be where we are if it was for Mission Barbecue. Because the second bill that we passed was to get an authorization to build this memorial within the reserve, is what people call the mall. So in 2021, we introduced the bill to get another bill. I'm not a politics guy. I don't like passing bills. I don't like dealing. I just not me. But in order to get this memorial built where we feel it belongs, alongside the other existing memorials, we had to pass another act. Get exemption from other federal law, and we were able to do that. And it's because Mission Barbecue stepped in. Otherwise, this memorial was going to be pushed to who knows where in the fabric of the city, between office buildings maybe, like where the Eisenhower Memorial is behind the Air and Space Museum. World War I Memorial is beautiful. It's over in Pershing Park, and I think it's suitable, but they're not going to get the foot traffic or visibility that this is necessary. So Mission Barbecue stepped in, and I say I will tell people this will be the memorial that barbecue built. Good old American barbecue, and Mission Barbecue, they're phenomenal in what they do. They serve their local communities. If anybody's not familiar with them, I strongly urge you to look into who they are and the corporate culture that they built. They really believe in servant heart leadership. This
is the best non-ad ad that Mission Barbecue has
well,
ever
it's easy to tell the truth. I mean, they're phenomenal. I mean, they got another one open up next week in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I could not say enough good. They could have wrote a check for $100,000 to us, and I say the same thing. They're doing some pretty amazing things in their local communities, and I'm looking forward to seeing them grow.
All right, Tom and Teresa, at this moment in the podcast, I want a Mission Barbecue emblem right here, and I want the All right. Wow. That's awesome, man. That's incredible.
And now it's time for the Warrior Rising Veteran Entrepreneur of the Week. Warrior Rising is the preeminent veteran entrepreneurship charity in the galaxy. Warrior Rising provides education, mentorship, grants, and more to veteran entrepreneurs. No one helps build more successful veteranpreneurs than Warrior Rising. Each week, Warrior Rising selects one veteranpreneur to feature in our program. Here's this week's. As many of you know, I kind of invented the whole veteran apparel company thing, and for that, I want to say I'm sorry. I kid. I loved it. I love you guys for supporting me, and I loved the journey it took me on. And now I want to introduce you to the next generation of military fashionistas, Triple Nickel. Triple Nickel is a veteran-owned apparel company with a social focus. Their brand stems from the 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion, the first all-black airborne battalion. Their designs deliver powerful messages with urban style. They've got a very different look and feel from the old-school brands, and that's a good thing. It's important to make your own stuff. Their apparel is made with high-quality materials to ensure it will stand the test of time. Whether you're shopping as a veteran, a military spouse, or a supporter of the armed forces, they've got exactly what you're looking for. Be the inspiration, be the trendsetter, be the amplifier. Visit triplenickel.com. That's TRIPLENIKEL.com.
All right, rapid fire questions. And you guys can feel free to throw out some rapid fire questions as well, but we'll start with the classic. What is the toughest animal that you could beat to death in hand-to-hand combat?
Probably a medium-sized dog.
A medium-sized dog?
Yeah, I think I could take a pit bull, I think.
Really?
I think I could.
Even a Cujo?
That's not a medium-sized dog. That is a huge dog.
Yeah.
Anything over 120 pounds, I'm not sure if I'm going to win that one.
Yeah. That was a pretty reason. We've had some wild answers. People really think they can take some wild animals,
I think I could do a medium.
I think my toughest, if I had a good day, I think I could do adolescent black bear. Adolescent, not a 500-pounder. We're talking a couple hundred pounds. That would be peak.
I think it depend on the claws.
They
get one good in on your carotid, you're done, dude.
Yeah.
Is there some strategy at all behind this, or are you just throwing out what you think you can maybe get your hands around for?
I feel like dog, you're giving up an arm. But
if I give up an arm, then I can get the rest of it.
I always think
there's no tool on the dog that is going to take me out. immediately unless I just like come out over my neck, right? That's not going to happen.
I feel like you give up the left arm, and then I'm thinking like control the body and try to break its back against a tree or something.
No, I'm digging out eyes first.
Oh, you're going for the eyes.
I'm digging out eyes, and then it's going to go down.
I think I could take
Kelsey,
a great
Kelsey,
white shark.
Kelsey.
Sorry.
Whose show is this?
I
Did you just say a great white shark?
Yes, I did. One, because
This is the most ridiculous thing. This is more ridiculous than the dude that thought he was going to take out a honey badger.
Well, that was very far-fetched, but this one I think is pretty realistic. And I say this because if you've ever seen Deep Blue Sea, LL Cool J taught me exactly how to fight a shark and to escape with my life. You just punch it in its nose.
It doesn't work.
Well, have you tried it?
Yes.
That will be our next show. We'll go swim with sharks.
I went shark diving in South Africa, and it does nothing to them. Touching their nose does nothing. I was in like a terrible cage. It wasn't like a National Geographic cage. It was like a chicken wire cage. And like they had a dude that had like a prod that was like whacking them so that they wouldn't like get to. Yeah, it was not a safe environment.
Well, see,
anyway.
This is the problem with film.
Yeah. LL Cool J is going to get you killed. You could not take a great white shark. That's really, they're 4,000 pounds.
I'll let you know the day.
I'm actually offended right now. I'm offended. I've never been offended in my life, and right now, I'm like, in Kelsey's mind, she's got like a saddle across the shark, and she's like riding it into the sun.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of the exact scenario of Deep Blue Sea, like it's going to happen this way, and it probably will.
Deep Blue Sea. You can restart your life right now. You're going to lose all your memories. You're going to lose everything that you know, but you can keep one skill. What is it?
I think it would probably be my skill to be able to defend myself.
That's a good one. Worst combat sports moment of your life? Most embarrassing or most terrible?
Getting knocked out by my son.
That's brutal.
Yeah, he was 16.
Really
we were supposed to be body sparring, and him being the Muay Thai fighter, I went down for body blow, and he caught me with a knee. And then I wake up, and I was like, "Am I okay?" He goes, "Dad, you were snoring." I'm like, "Okay, I was knocked out." So that's mine.
Best combat sports moment of your life?
Actually watching my son spar. So I showed up at the Rock Gym because he started training there when he was 13 or 14, and I was teaching at the sniper course at Range 37 at the time. So they all sparred at the end of the training. So I walk in there, and I see Antonio just whooping up on this dude, just beating the heck out of this guy. And then, I always showed up last 30 minutes to watch, and, sit there and watch. And they finished, and they go over, and I happen to look at him, and the guy he's beating the hell out of just happened to have been one of my students that I was training, that was training at night. So then, they go over there, and Antonio goes get his stuff, and then the guy comes, "Hey, Rod, how you doing?" I go, "Hey, man." He goes, "You training here?" I go, "No, I'm actually here to pick up my son." And then Antonio walks up, "Hey, Dad, I'm ready." I'm like, "All right." And he knows he just got his butt kicked by my son. Yeah. He looks at me and goes, "Yeah, I saw it, man." And I'm going to tell everybody tomorrow. So that's my best, and it's not even me fighting. It's watching my son beat the heck out of a Green Beret.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If there was one thing that you could change about America instantly, like you're the god for one moment that you think would make the country better, what would that thing be?
If I could change one thing, like instantly here in the United States, I think it would be that I would instill into each American the belief that they have something to offer this nation, and the desire to do whatever that is. I'm not saying everyone should join the military, but it might just be volunteer to soup kitchen. It might be something. I just think I would like to instill a little bit more pride in our citizenry. That's a word, right? Yeah.
Nailed it.
In who they are.
How do you say citizenry in Espanol?
No sé. I don't know.
Come on, man.
I don't. I'm sorry. Lo siento. I would have Americans have a little more grace and realize what they have, and that's two things. You said one thing, but I just not pride to the point of like craziness, but just the realization that they have something to offer, and this is the beautiful nation that it is. In spite of our flaws, if you look outside the borders, any flaw you point out that this nation has, it exists tenfold in every other nation outside our borders.
If one state in the union was going to get absorbed by another state because it just is the least cool state, what state would that be?
Man, I'm probably gonna offend a bunch of people.
Well, you'll offend one state. You know,
Yeah,
but
no,
they might
no,
be
no,
like,
no.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
right.
You know,
You can't give a wussy
it's got to be the
answer.
least.
You can't give a wussy answer.
No,
It
no,
could be
no.
any state you want. One
but
state,
the least
like,
cool
like
state.
we're not kicking them out of America.
No, no,
We're
no.
just,
But they
you
just
don't
not
get to
going to
be
be a state anymore.
Yeah. Which state is it?
Oh my gosh, it would probably be like one of the unknown states. Like, why do we have a North and South Dakota? Like, why do we have that?
I don't know.
Like, I would probably.
I mean, I
they're
do
both
know-
pretty
I do
least.
know,
they're probably both pretty least cool. So I would like merge those ones.
Into what would the new state be called?
The Dakotas, I don't know, or even with North and South Carolina, I'm like, why
Whoa,
do we
whoa,
have
whoa,
that?
whoa, whoa! You,
Hey, look, I've lived there for a long time too, man. I'm like, I understand the differences, but like, I just think like probably the Dakotas, man. Like, why do we have a North South Dakota? And I'm like I said,
So
I hope that's not like I'm not trying to
Yeah.
give a wussy answer. I'm just saying like I don't understand
And it's a cool name.
the Dakotas.
Yeah.
I would do that.
Leave the Carolinas alone.
Yeah.
We don't need to be.
All right. Well, with that, sir.
I got one rapid fire.
Oh God, Mercer always like
Dan
his timing is terrible, right? Like his
You
timing
missed
is
that
terrible.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
when you
like
called
we.
us.
I was waiting for him to
Yeah,
finish.
yeah.
That's
When
all
we
right.
were having like a deep discussion, and Mercer's like, "Yeah, one time that happened to me." Like,
will ask.
"Hey, thanks, Dan. That was extremely helpful." You know? No, Dan, please ask your question.
That's it.
No, I want.
No,
what
we
is it?
want you
Toilet
to.
paper over or under when you put it on the roll.
That's
over.
perfect.
Over. That's what the experts
Thank
do.
you.
That's what experts do at the hotels, right? Those are the
Over.
experts. It's
Exactly.
over.
I had to settle this debate. We have someone in our office. I notice every time I go to the bathroom, someone's changed it back, and I'm wondering who the monster is.
It's
that's
Tom.
doing
It's
that.
Tom Hunt.
And here's
Yeah.
the thing: I looked up the first drawing of the toilet paper when it was invented. Over.
Over.
All right. So with that, now that Mercer has interrupted us for the last time, and all right. So very quickly, Rod, thanks so much for being on the neutral position. It was a pleasure to have you on. Insightful as always. You remind me of a young Jafar. I mean, what else can I say? What else can I say? Kelsey, if you could duck real quick so that everyone can see the neutral position with Nick Palmisano. Thank you.
Thank you, hermano. I appreciate it.
Gracias.
Gracias a ti.